We have to create heaven. Otherwise, we don't have it. That's all I can say. We have to protect others. Otherwise, we cannot expect protection. We must live as an honorable, dignified, worthy being that call humans the crown of the creation.
Please continue watching for encouraging accounts of people walking the way of love.
Vegan, because we also want to be respected and loved.
Dumelang. If you are in Botswana, this is how we greet two or more people. It means hello in Setswana, a language spoken by over 4 million people in Southern Africa. Esteemed viewers, I am Tumelo, a vegan person from the Meerkat Kingdom and your host. All the inhabitants of my country wish you peace and spiritual upliftment. Welcome to part 1 of our 2-part show celebrating Be Kind to Animals Week, the true spirit of humanity. The non-profit organization American Humane initiated Be Kind to Animals Week in 1915. It has been observed at the beginning of May every year since 1973, promoting more compassionate relationships with all animal people. Let's participate by sharing some heartwarming stories about selfless human beings who came to the rescue when someone from another species was in a desperate situation. Climate change and other environmental catastrophes caused by humans have impacted the well-being of us animal people, making it harder for us to live in peace. When a natural disaster occurs, it's not only humans who suffer, we animal people do too. In July 2021, as a terrible wildfire burnt through 14,000 hectares of Russia's Chelyabinsk region, firefighters saved a terrified deer person baby who was crying for help. Such benevolence is like a precious jewel that we will always treasure. Another tender story comes from Lithuania. Erikas Plukas is a farmer there, and one day when he returned home, there was a baby moose person lying in front of his gate. Her fur was dirty and infested with fly people, and she looked starved and frightened. Mr. Plukas didn't know what to do at first, but his heart advised him. He brought his new friend into the barn and started taking care of her. He named her Emma, and a special bond formed between them from that moment. The little moose maiden needed to be fed every 4 hours and cried for her human dad to stay with her at night. As Emma recovered and grew bigger, Mr. Plukas began taking her for walks in the woods, making her aware of her natural habitat and teaching her how to find food. Eventually, Emma was old enough to be on her own and returned to living in the wild. But for a long time, she regularly visited Mr. Plukas to express her deep gratitude for saving her life. Doesn't their affectionate relationship melt your heart? Sometimes, out of curiosity, we animal people go to places and do things that we wind up regretting. In India, a young goat person wandered into a field and tumbled down an abandoned borehole. Fortunately, a group of young men heard her cries and went to help. One of them went headlong into the opening, while 3 others held his legs. When the first man gave the signal, his friends pulled him out with the frightened animal person, who quickly scampered away. The liberators were overjoyed, as were thousands of viewers who watched the drama on social media. Kudos to humans who put others' needs before their own and manifest God's love. On November 26, 2008, Supreme Master Ching Hai had a conference on the environment with members of the Supreme Master television team in Los Angeles, USA. During the dialogue, she related her experience of trying to save an injured opossum person.
I met also an opossum person. She was on the road and she was hit by a car. No clinic was open at that time, but because I had a lot of pets, so one of my vet doctors opened his house for me. I went to his house and begged him to come to the clinic to save the opossum person. And he could not save her, but at least he eased her pain. And then in the morning, she passed away. But we discovered she has many babies in her pouch. Do you know a possum person? Mother carried the babies in her pouch like a kangaroo person. Oh, it was really very, very emotional for me. And so the doctor arranged with some wildlife society, and they took the babies to where they specialize in taking care of baby possum person. The next night, she came into my vision with a whole bunch of babies and to thank me. Oh, it was too much. It was very, very touching. She came in my vision with the babies to thank me and say that they're happy. She's happy to go and all that.
Vegan leader, mover and shaker.
We will pause for a few moments so you can refill the garden feeder that attracts melodious songbird people. There's more to come, so please stay tuned to Supreme Master Television. Welcome back to our program, Be Kind to Animals Week, the True Spirit of Humanity, Part 1 of 2 on Supreme Master Television. Here in Botswana, a conservationist and his partner came across a distressed kudu person lying on the side of the road. Apparently, he had tried to jump over a wire fence and his legs had gotten caught. Despite the risk to his own safety, the kind man cautiously proceeded to untangle the wires. Meanwhile, the animal person was exhausted and perhaps dehydrated from his ordeal, so the rescuer offered him some water and even tried to roll him over. After a few unsuccessful attempts, the kudu person suddenly stood up and trotted away into the wilderness. An additional aspect of kindness to animal people is respect for the vast oceans on Earth. Did you know that more than 70% of the planet is covered with water? In a way, marine organisms should dominate our world, yet people who live on land plunder the seas in many ways. Not only do humans harvest sentient beings to eat, but they typically abandon their old plastic fishing gear in the water. Because of this garbage, innumerable bird people and aquatic life are injured or killed each year. In June 2020, near the Italian island of Lipari, a sperm whale person's tail was helplessly entangled in a discarded net. Researchers from a local conservation association discovered the struggling cetacean person and contacted the Italian Coast Guard. It took about 2 hours for rescue divers to slice away the constraining cords completely. The following month, a boater off the coast of Massachusetts, USA, reported seeing a distressed sea turtle person in the bay. When the environmental police responded, they found a large maritime reptile individual whose front flipper was trapped in a length of rope. The US Coast Guard also showed up, cut the cord off, and the gentle giant quickly swam away. When the crew of a sightseeing boat from Florida, USA, spotted a pair of bottlenose dolphin people behaving oddly, the captain edged his craft nearer to investigate. It looked like a mother and her baby, but there was a line from a lobster people trap wrapped around the little one, and it was having trouble breathing. After receiving permission from authorities on shore, crew members entered the water and successfully severed the line. In the fall of 2020, 3 beluga whale persons became stranded 1.5 kilometers inland from the mouth of the Uda River on Russia's sparsely populated east coast. When a local government inspector found 2 adults and an infant on the beach, he single-handedly assumed responsibility for their survival. He dug a ditch to improve the position of one of the adults and doused the whole family with water to prevent dehydration. The temperature dropped after dark, so the kind-hearted man covered the baby with material to keep it warm. Finally, around midnight, the rising tide was high enough for the whale persons to swim back to the sea. Whoever saves a single life is considered by scripture to have saved the whole world. This famous quote from the Jewish Talmud applies perfectly to all these saviors of our precious co-inhabitants. We offer our compliments and deep appreciation for their noble deeds. The world does indeed need saving at this time, and perhaps it will require all of humanity to embrace such righteousness. On October 18, 2009, there was a conference with Supreme Master Ching Hai at the 61st Frankfurt Book Fair in Germany. The occasion was the premiere of German and French editions of her book, The Noble Wilds, and the Polish edition of her book, The Dogs in My Life. She made the following emotional appeal to the audience regarding the correct way for humans to live their lives.
We have to create heaven. Otherwise, we don't have it. That's all I can say. We have to protect others. Otherwise, we cannot expect protection. We must live as an honorable, dignified, worthy being that call human the crown of the creation.
We salute all individuals whose ethical lifestyles help raise moral standards. When we animal folk see people courageously saving lives and preventing species extinction, our dream of a peaceful planet is revived. Welcome to the second part of our program in honor of Be Kind to Animals Week, the true spirit of humanity. The non-profit organization American Humane initiated Be Kind to Animals Week in 1915. It has been observed at the beginning of May every year since 1973, promoting more compassionate relationships with all animal people. All lives on Earth are important and meaningful. Saving a life is worth whatever it takes. We have heard many stories of individual humans helping animal people in need of assistance. Such love in action can inspire us to show kindness toward our co-inhabitants. But there are times when a successful rescue requires more than what one person can do. Today's program will share examples of collective efforts to protect precious people from the animal kingdom. In Almaty, Kazakhstan, a pitiful dog person was stranded in the middle of a canal. A concerned passerby took the risk of sliding down a steep embankment and wading into the rapids to save him. After reaching the canine guy, the man pulled him out of the water, but the bank was too high and steep to climb back up. That's when strangers at the top spontaneously joined the effort. They grasped each other by the hand to form a human chain and pulled the rescuer and the victim up to safety. Bravo! This scene is so moving. It can help bolster one's faith in humanity. From a village in western India comes a heartening story about humans working together to retrieve a leopard lady who had fallen into a well. When a farmer discovered her, she was trapped 9 meters underground and completely soaked. While waiting for a team from Wildlife SOS, forest officers and residents attached ropes to a short ladder, so the animal person had something to rest on. The conservationists arrived shortly with a large cage, which they lowered into the waterhole. The feline girl seemed to understand their intentions and gratefully entered the enclosure. The rescuers carefully lifted it out and transported their charge to a refuge for examination and treatment. Kudos to everyone involved in saving this magnificent being. On a cold winter morning in the United States, motorists noticed that a herd of elk people was in trouble. Palisades Reservoir had frozen over near the border between Idaho and Wyoming, and the unexpected animal travelers had fallen through the ice. Some people pulled over and got out of their cars, attracting more observers. Soon, a crew of 30 to 40 volunteers was using chainsaws and other tools to clear a liquid pathway to the shore. But the elk people were unable to move on their own. Rescuers had to use straps and ropes to pull all 13 of them out of the water, one at a time. A government biologist praised the selfless community members, stating that without their help, some elk people would not have survived. In the summer of 2000, a cargo ship sank off the coast of South Africa, leaking 1,300 tons of fuel into the ocean. Unfortunately, the disaster site was midway between Robben and Dassin Islands, where 2 of the largest populations of African penguin people breed. Approximately 20,000 individuals were oiled, and the same number were at risk as toxic pollution drifted toward their habitat. More than 12,000 volunteers from local and international organizations came together for the largest animal people assistance project ever attempted. After being cleaned and treated, the first group of bird troopers was returned to the wild within 3 weeks. Rescuers also evacuated feathered friends in harm's way and collected babies left behind by oiled parents. Ultimately, the dedicated humans saved about 95% of the regional penguin people population threatened by the spill. Those reintroduced to nature received permanent armbands to monitor their health, and for the most part, survivors fared fabulously well considering what they endured.
Vegan leader, world-class ruler.
Let's pause now for a brief intermission. I will make a quick round of the neighborhood to see if any humans or fellow animal friends need help. We'll share more inspiring stories when we return, so please stay tuned to Supreme Master Television. Welcome back to our program, Be Kind to Animals Week, The True Spirit of Humanity, Part 2 of 2 on Supreme Master Television. In November 2021, a rainstorm caused flash flooding in a rural part of British Columbia, Canada, where a team of horse people had been grazing. They shifted to a high spot in the field and became stranded overnight as the water rose to their chests. They were too scared to move the next day, despite repeated coaxing. Thankfully, one man brought a motorboat and 2 other men were cowboys with wrangling experience. The 3 of them headed for the equine folk, navigating through strong currents. One of the cowboys, Henry Chelyabinsk, was familiar with the farm and guided the boat to the team's rear. The men influenced the 29 horse people to advance through the floodwaters toward the gates and higher ground. When Mr. Chelyabinsk was interviewed later for CBC radio, he commented, "If we didn't do anything, then my heart probably would have shattered in 2 billion pieces." That reminds me of a dramatic event in the Netherlands 15 years earlier. A tidal surge caused seawater to breach the dikes and submerge a wilderness area outside the village of Marum. A herd of 100 horse people took refuge on a sliver of elevated land in the middle of what became a lake. Some locals delivered hay for them to eat, but otherwise they were in poor condition, standing in cold and wet weather for 3 days. Rescue attempts by boat did not go well, liberating only a dozen or so individuals. Finally, the authorities put out a call for experienced riders with horses without fear of water. Norma Miedema was the first of 6 women to respond, and when they met on site the following day, she became their leader. They all rode to the knoll where the horse people were trapped and then made U-turns. As they slowly headed back to higher ground, the frightened horse people found the confidence to follow them. It was a remarkable chain reaction and a complete success. The Dutch government subsequently recognized Miss Miedema and the other heroines for their kindness and bravery. The stories we have shared are examples of the compassionate attempts some humans are willing to make for members of the animal kingdom. We send our love and gratitude to all the heroes who have saved our co-inhabitants and helped them in countless ways. But let's consider things from a different perspective. To what extent have animal people suffered because of the unthinking behavior of humans? We want to make a few recommendations that could improve the status quo. Try to live by the motto, reduce, reuse, recycle. It reflects an awareness that benefits people and the environment by saving natural and financial resources. We animal folk love to explore our surroundings, so items that are not disposed of properly can easily affect our well-being. If we are small, we can get stuck in bottles and cans. Those of us who make our home in the sea might find ourselves tangled in discarded fishing nets or pierced by hooks. Broken glass is hazardous because of its sharp edges, and it can also concentrate sunlight enough to start a fire. Plastic items are especially worrying when they decompose into tiny pieces called microplastics, which animal people often mistake for food. Happily, more humans are learning to shrink their environmental footprint. Reducing trash is an important start. Please reuse items whenever possible. If you can't repurpose something, please try to recycle it. Putting things in the garbage should be the last resort. Even then, please do it mindfully. The rings of plastic 6-pack fasteners should be cut, as well as the straps on discarded face masks. Tie old plastic bags into knots and find out what things you should never pour down the drain. The world's flora and fauna will thank you for your consideration. Of course, any discussion about human-caused animal people suffering needs to declare the vegan diet a moral imperative. It is also the easiest way to save lives and safeguard the planet. On July 7, 2009, during an interview with Irish journalist Ben Murnane, about the global climate situation, Supreme Master Ching Hai suggested the best way for humans to live.
We are the so-called civilized, intelligent, superior species, the human race. Shouldn't we reconsider how to act with befitting manner? That is to protect, love, and preserve the life of our co-inhabitants, the animals, persons, the environment. These certainly are recommendable, noble, and proper actions. Just be veg, go green, do good.
The sanctity of every life is to be saved and preserved. Rumi, vegetarian.
Gentle viewers, thank you for being with us for our program today. Up next is The United Spirit of the Ukrainian People Shines Before the World, Part 7 of 12 on Between Master and Disciples, right after noteworthy news. May your blossoming goodness brighten the lives of others.
Our programs offer many languages. Please visit suprememastertv.com/schedule and suprememastertv.com/AW.